YouTube, the NBA playoffs are here. Are we excited? I'm excited. These last two games of bubble games have been brutal, other than the Trailblazers stuff. That game was excellent. I am recording this during the Friday games, and for some reason I decided to try to play NBA DFS today, and it's been a mess. Regardless, NBA playoffs are coming, and I wanted to hop on and talk about five guys who I think have a chance to see massive bumps in their prices if things fall correctly. So, leading up to the playoffs, a few guys have gotten huge bumps already. Jokic, Lillard, Booker, Rip Suns, see you next season. AD got a big price bump. So I wanted to look, Michael Porter Jr., that's the biggest one. I wanted to look to see, is there anyone that people I don't want to say forgot about, but just haven't seen that massive spike in prices yet, like MPJ got. He's going to be the one that I go to the most here. Just because I think there's some, I don't want to say artificial inflation building with Porter Jr. He is really good, but he's like jumped some of these guys in prices. And I think Porter Jr.'s prices are fine, but when you compare them to other players in the league, I don't know that that's necessarily. I feel like they got left behind as he jumped up. So there's kind of like a market correction that needs to go backwards so these other guys could catch back up again. And you see that happen a lot in the sports card market. So I went through a bunch of prices on guys from playoff teams, and I found what I think are five guys that have a pretty good chance that they could easily see big bumps if they put up, with any more, a good half of basketball. So let's get into it. And before I forget, because I already have, thank you for 500 subs. We hit 500. We blew through 500 actually on the last video. Like, just blew right through it. You guys are amazing. If you're not subbed, sub, comment, ask questions, like buttons, YouTube nonsense, whatever. Done. Cool. Good. Let's go. Let's talk some hoops. Okay. Other than the one player on this list, I feel like these are all guys that could potentially, that actually not should, but have a really good chance of moving on to the second round. And I think that's going to be key. For those of you guys that haven't been around before, the deeper guys go into the playoffs, their prices just keep climbing if they're playing well. Last year, Giannis' stuff went absolutely nuts. Pascal Siakam's stuff went absolutely nuts. A lot of other guys like that. So, let's hop into it. This charting is for the last 7 days. So I went back 7 days because I wanted just what the recent market trends were. About 7 days ago is when MPJ went crazy. A little over that. He's actually down a little bit over the last 7 days. But his stuff, his PSA 10 is just under $500 right now. It's like 480-ish. So, who has stayed relatively flat? So the first one I have on this list is Kemba Walker. He was a little hurt. Kind of got going a little slow. Has been picking it up lately. And, his price, and I'm going to say this. I am just showing Prism here. If any of these guys strike your fancy, feel free to look at Optic, Select, whatever your card of choice is. I just went with Prism because it's the easiest and it's kind of the baseline for everything, and everything trickles down from there. So, if you really like one of these players, and you like the path they have going forward, feel free to look at alternatives other than Prism, or even go up to Prism Silvers or variations, whatever you want to do. But the Celtics got a gift in that Ben Simmons got hurt. So they're basically facing a crippled 76ers team in the first round. They should easily make it into the second round of the playoffs. So that's just a lot of games for him to potentially have a big bump. And the pop count on this is super low. 191. It's probably a little more than that, but this is a very low pop count on a card. Like I said, I don't like getting hung up on pop counts too much. But when they're that low, that's a little crazy. So, Kemba is one. You can see his price has gone up a little bit over the last 7 days. But not like a ton. He's the one that's changed the most. I almost didn't include him on the list, but um, he snuck on just so I can have a nice number 5. Next one, same team, Jalen Brown. This guy is criminally underrated. Um, he's played very well in the bubble games. He's put up some big games. And I can easily see him looking better than Tatum in some games. And I love Tatum. I'm a big Tatum believer. But Jalen Brown stuff is half of what Tatum goes for. His PSA 10 is sitting around $450. You can see it really hasn't changed much. You're telling me that if he has a 30 or 35 point game, that his stuff's not going to go crazy, or a couple of them. I just think he has the potential. There's 2 guys on this list that I am the most. Actually, there's 3 guys on this list that I am extremely interested in. He is one of them. He is probably number 2, if not number 1. On this list of guys I am the most intrigued with, that I think have potential to have a monster game and could break out. Next up on the list, Bam. This is another one. This is a low pop count card. It's sitting at around 450-ish. And I think the Heat have a legit chance to make the Eastern Conference Finals. That team is good. They are deep, and they are built for the playoffs. You got Nunn and Hero as the young guys. You got Bam just causing havoc. You got the Dragon as the vet leader, plus Kelly O. You got Duncan Robinson, who is just a sniper. The Jimmy Butler mentality of that team, the Heat culture, Spo, all that stuff. I think they could run roughshod over the Eastern Conference. And if they do, Bam's going to be a big part of it. And his cards really haven't spiked finishing up this bubble stuff. You know, all these guys that I'm showing are basically sitting at around the same price point, $400 to $500 a card. And that's, once again, assuming you're looking at the Prism. You know, if you drop down to the Optic or whatever, you can get in on these players a lot cheaper. But this is another guy. He could easily come out and throw down, you know, a 30-15 game, and his prices go ballistic. The fourth one on this list, Donovan Mitchell. I feel like everyone's always says he's criminally undervalued. His PSA 10's around just slightly under $400 right now. The problem is I don't think they get out of the first round. In fact, I'd be shocked if they got out of the first round. They play Denver, and Denver looks good. But this is just criminally underpriced. And if they are going to make it out of the first round, it's going to be on his back. The other thing with this one is, this is kind of a combo effect. If he plays well, you could get a nice spike and maybe you just get out of him. But I also like Mitchell as a longer-term hold. I think at some point in time, sorry Jazz fans, he's not staying there. They're probably either going to be forced to trade him, or he's going to force his way out, or he's going to leave as a free agent, most likely. And he's going to go join some super team or create one. And when that happens, his prices are going to go crazy. Now, I don't know when that's going to happen, obviously. But Mitchell, if you ever make a list of criminally undervalued people in the sports card market, Mitchell's always on it, at least in the NBA. His stuff is always super cheap. But if he strings together a couple big games and they happen to give the Nuggets a run for their money, look out, because his stuff will go crazy. He just never seems to get the love because he's stuck in Utah and everyone forgets he exists. Okay, this is my favorite one. SGA. SGA got a really big run up prior to the bubble. He was really trendy right before the NBA came back. His prices went up quite a bit, and then they leveled off, and he's actually tailing back down a little bit. He is ridiculously good. He is super young. And they play the Rockets in round one. You don't think Chris Paul wants to knock the Rockets out of the playoffs? This OKC team is legit good. And the Rockets don't have Russell Westbrook for potentially the entire first round. He's at least out for a few games with a bad quad. And that's an injury that could easily cause him to miss a week or two. I wouldn't be surprised if OKC knocks Houston out of the playoffs. And if that happens, and SGA puts together a couple games, his prices are going to go nuts. He's one of those ones, kind of like how Michael Porter. It's a little bit different, but it's the same concept. The hobby loves SGA. For whatever reason, the hobby focuses in on a few players that they just love. And the second they back it up on the court, their stuff goes crazy. It happened with Bol Bol. It happened with MPJ. And it's happened with a bunch of other players where these guys are buzzy and trendy and everyone likes them and their prices are probably a little higher than they should be. And then all of a sudden, they actually back it up on the court. And it is like gasoline on a fire. SGA is one of those players. People in this industry absolutely adore him. And if he puts up a couple huge games, which he is completely capable of, and they're going to be playing the Rockets, which, you know, they play at the fastest pace in the league and just want to throw points up left and right. So if OKC has to match that, then they're going to score a ton too. And that's what seems to be driving prices, is these huge point totals. Just like home runs in baseball. So, to me, out of the five, he is my favorite on this list. I legit think they could beat the Rockets. He is trendy to begin with, and his prices have actually slipped a little bit. It's not much. I mean, you can see there, it's 2% on the graph. But they haven't been going up. He's played pretty good in some of the bubble games. He got a little dinged up, whatever. I'm not concerned about it. And now you're telling me that they have a good chance to move on to the second round and he's going to be playing in an offensive super fest for the first series? Sign me up for that. And Chris Paul is going to be out to murder those dudes. Just straight up murder those dudes. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. I just wanted to kind of touch base before these playoffs officially fire up. At the time of this recording, the 8th seed is still unknown. It is going to be the Grizz versus the Blazers in the play-in game. I think the world thinks that the Blazers are going to at least win one of those two games and take that down. If for some reason the Grizz get in, whoo boy, Joss prices. But that's a conversation for a different day. We will see what happens. So yeah, that's all I got. If you guys got questions, leave them down below. Sub, like, YouTube shenanigans. And we will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.